Ooh, man. Things got hot between Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. Not hot to like where they're hot mad at each other. It's got to a point where it's confusing. That's the part that gets me. Is the confusion. How can two people who share such an amazing run with one another have two very different looks on the growth of the show? Now, everybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge Undisputed fan and I watch First Take. What you don't know is that before First Take, all the debate shows that you used to see go down used to go down on YouTube. And boxing ruled that domain. We're going to get to the truths around here that many of you don't really understand. The debate shows that were popular at the time were normally debate shows, period, no matter what you were debating. But it had never been done really on full television with just sports, having the analysts debate each other. They normally just gave you the news. Now, to me, this is when things started to change, and I don't know if it was for the better, but it was for the ratings. Let's listen.
What happened was Skip Bayless was doing First Take, and they were doing it based out of New York. It was called Code Pizza, and they had just a regular conventional sports talk show, and they had incorporated debates for a segment here or there with Skip Bayless and Woody Page. Well, a couple years later, they moved it to Bristol, Connecticut, to the headquarters of ESPN, called it First Take, changed the name from Code Pizza to First Take. And then one of these days, a guy by the name of Jamie Horowitz was an executive here, and he took over First Take for a short period of time. He did a focus group. And the focus group said, we don't want all that other stuff. We want debate. And so he took First Take from a conventional show and changed it into an all-debate format featuring Skip Bayless. And that's when it really took off. Of course, part of the interruption was already in play, around the horn and stuff like that. But as it pertained to First Take, that's where its real origin came from. Skip was doing it with a potpourri of individuals for a few years. I had been gone from ESPN over a contract dispute from May of 2009 to February of 2011. Skip Bayless was doing his thing with First Take, having the two live stews, Jamel Hill, Rob Parker, and various other people debating against him. And then in 2012, they weren't satisfied with the numbers. They weren't satisfied with the ratings, the level of revenue that was being generated. Skip Bayless comes to me in the parking lot on the campus of ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. And he says, I know you got your plans. You love the NBA. You love being out on the road. You love being in the locker room. But he said, but I need you. He said, I can't. I've done all that I could to take this as far as I could go. I need you to do this for me, please. He said, I just need 3 years. He said, I think we'll knock it out of the park. I thought about it. Those were clearly my best options. They weren't about to give me my own show or anything like that at the time. I thought about it for a couple of days. I said, all right, I'll do it. 1 month later, we were number one.
Listen. That is Stephen A. Smith on JJ Redick's podcast. And I just want to say, wow. That man said that with a straight face. But I'll tell you right now, 10 years ago, he would have never said that statement. He would have never sat there that arrogantly and made that statement. You see, the reason why he feels comfortable making a statement like that now, because he has the money. He's got the money, the moolah. Now, I did, before Undisputed even aired one episode, did the truth behind the first take in Undisputed Beef. That gave you a full layout of what was to come, what was the reasoning behind it, the whole nine. Now, they hadn't even aired one episode on Undisputed when that video was made. I knew what Undisputed was going to do. ESPN knew what they were going to do. I told you what happened between Stephen A. and his time on the show. And it's funny to me, Skip Bayless had to break his silence and speak to one individual. And that individual was the audience. He went on his own show, the Skip Bayless podcast, and addressed this because this was one of the biggest lies ever told. And it's not like, oh, you just hating Stephen A. I've already told this. And it's different from what he just said. Brother, you were basically fired from ESPN. You weren't in a contract dispute. You were working at CNN in a cubicle. It was not a contract dispute. They were like, we don't really need you. Quite frankly, failed. You couldn't pull it out the gutter with the ratings. You thought you were worth more than what you actually generated. You know better now, but then you didn't. You were really arrogant and thinking because you really hot with the NBA players and that equals up to the numbers and the ratings. And you were wrong. And you admitted that. But you were on the outs. The only reason you were getting those 10-minute spots on the show was because, one, they were just paying out the rest of your contract. So there was no dispute. I told y'all this. This man was living off his savings, had lost everything, and was going back to NSNBC and doing radio. He was talking politics. I've shown you the proof. So for those 2 years, you were gone. Skip Bayless said, hey, let me get this guy. Let me just get 10 minutes. Begged ESPN to let you on for at least 10-minute segments. The show goes through the roof when Jalen Rose got into it with Skip Bayless. Not you. Jalen Rose. That show go through the stratosphere for trending and everything else. I've already told this story. So it ain't like I needed to hear Stephen A. All I heard Stephen A. do is just lie. He just flat out lied to everybody who's listening. That is a bold-faced lie. And Skip Bayless, thank God you come forward and called him out on it. Skip Bayless has been the most respectful to Stephen A. Smith and the most responsible for his success at ESPN because he wouldn't have been there. He wouldn't have been there one bit. And I want people to understand that. Skip also pointed out some major factors that beforehand there was a show called Black and Sports in Black and White that Fox wanted to do, and it never came to be. Even though it tested well with you and Skip Bayless, they didn't do the show because of the fact they just felt people 5 nights a week couldn't deal with Stephen A. Smith when they went back to the execs. That he's not what we need five times a week. Not him. We don't think he's no. But they didn't see the vision that Skip saw. Skip fought tirelessly for you. When did you have to fight for Skip? Now, I'm not here to take away from his success and what he played on the show. They were a good yin and yang. But to say he's the reason it went through the roof, brother, y'all never eclipsed the 2011 numbers. That's what was the shock. I couldn't believe he said that. Because that was one of the biggest shows they had also had. Skip brought out a lot of factors on this whole episode that he did on his show. It was shocking. And he just couldn't believe it. This was viral everywhere. People was talking about it. It kept getting sent to me. So I said, I'm going to really address this thing. I addressed that knucklehead academics. I said, all right, let me do that. As I was riding with my sister, I said, let me go ahead and just do that because I don't want to spend too much time on this idiot. So I might as well do it while I'm in the process of doing something. Now, the Tim Tebow conversation is what got everything going because Skip Bayless was like the only human being defending the man. But based off the statement that man just made, let's let Skip hear what he had to say about it. I want to hear Skip's take. Because to me, that makes the most sense or just the easier way to do it. So let Skip say it himself.
Please move us to E1. And John Skipper continued to tell me, hey, if I do, your ratings will go through the roof because it's the reach on big ESPN versus E2 is, I don't know, maybe 10 to 1. So he would say, yeah, your ratings would go through the roof. But he said, if I move SportsCenter to E2, ESPN 2, SportsCenter will tank. And he said, we can't have that. SportsCenter is just too valuable to us. Would you believe that after the 2011 NFL season, I got nominated for an Emmy? I don't know how it happened, but I did. I still can't believe it to this day, but I did. I got nominated for an Emmy. Villainous me, nominated for an Emmy. And thanks to DJ Steve Porter, he made a music video built around my defending Tim Tebow. We called it All He Does Is Win, off my sort of slogan for the year. Would you believe that DJ Steve's music video won the Webby Award following the 2011 season? You know, maybe someday somebody will write a story or do a documentary on First Take just against all odds rise in 2011. It was the story within the story, the sort of Tebow-esque run of First Take, which became sort of part and parcel of Tebow's miraculous exploits. But here's the capper. Here's the apropos point to what I'm getting at. Only about mid-season in 2011 did Jamie Horowitz and I finally convince the head honchos, the big bosses as Stephen A. calls them, to let Stephen A. do one 10-minute segment a week, one a week, on Wednesdays on First Take. That was it. That was the quota. You get 10 minutes on Wednesday. So he would join me at the top of the second hour on First Take each Wednesday. And yes, there were automatic fireworks. We had history together. I missed him. I loved the man. And I loved making him look sillier and sillier about Tim Tebow. But he still had to repay his dues. We still just got the one segment. We began to fudge it and make it 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes. Maybe by the end of the year, we tried to pop him on maybe twice in a show. And so it was after the season ended. Jamie Horowitz sat down with me and we talked about what would be best for me going forward on First Take. He left it completely up to me. You want to keep the rotation? Do you want more Stephen A? Do you want less Stephen A? Totally my call. And I said, I want Stephen A to be my constant, my permanent partner, because I need a constant. I need someone I can trust every day to be that guy, that way, every day. While we can continue to weave in members of our debate rotation, which we continue to do. But in the end, you got to trust me on this. There was a big part of me that wanted to throw my brother Stephen A little bit of a lifeline, because I wanted to get him back in the door in Bristol. No more New York radio, LA radio, New York website. He belonged in Bristol. And so I was hoping to reel him back in, get him back in the good graces of the big bosses, so that he could, again, rise and shine the way he was meant to do at ESPN. But trust me on this, I did not plead with him to take the job. I did not need him to save First Take. It was a 1,000,000,000 runaway success story. And Jamie Horowitz, by that point, was now a rising star at the network, soon to leave to run the Today Show. Which brings me to Stephen A. telling JJ Redick on the podcast that a month after he joined me, that we skyrocketed to number one, where First Take remained. What? As Stephen A. well knows, the only competition that First Take had at that point was SportsCenter. There was no Undisputed. There was no Fox Sports 1. There was no competition to be found anywhere. We were competing with SportsCenter. We had already crushed SportsCenter. So how do you suddenly fall to number one? We had already done that. And in the end, I had hoped Stephen A. would join me. But you got to trust me on this also. As much as I missed him and loved working with him, if he'd said, no, I just don't want to get up that early to do First Take, I'll stick with my gigs, I wouldn't have lost any sleep. I would have been just fine. Life would have gone on beautifully for me and Jamie and all those working behind the scenes at First Take. It was just that I thought Stephen A. would be a little better for me. And I definitely think our ratings continued to climb, in part because he joined me. Rare chemistry. I give him credit for that, especially during NBA season, because he is the face of the NBA on ESPN. But the rocket had been launched against no competition. And I'm pretty sure that the ratings Stephen A. and I did on NFL Mondays in 2012 and 13 and 14 and 15, those 4 years we worked together, those ratings never touched the NFL Monday ratings that First Take hit in 2011. Never touched them. They were off the chart. They were out of the galaxy. They were impossibly great. Because of Tebow, but because Tebow had become my story. So for Stephen A. to suggest that he saved and made First Take is just an insult, not only to me, but to to everyone behind the scenes, all the courageous brain power behind the scenes at First Take in 2011, pre-Stephen A. I'm talking about Jamie Horowitz. I'm talking about Charlie Dixon. I'm talking about Whit Album.
Now, that pretty much summed that up. But what would make Stephen A. do that? Skip would also reveal that Stephen A. still comes by and visits him when he's in California. And the fact is, now, once Skip decided to leave and take the job at Undisputed over at Fox and go start his own thing over there with Jamie when they went over to Fox. Basically, this led to ESPN offering Stephen A. Smith the keys because that was all they had. They just lost Skip, and the only bargaining chip was to keep Stephen A. Smith because if they lose both of them to Fox, it's done. So now they were going up against First Take, which they feared they were going to lose in the ratings battle. So they did what Skip Bayless begged them to do from the very beginning, which was move First Take to ESPN1. But they, like he told you, said that, no, we don't want to do that. It's going to kill our flagship program, which is Sports Center. We care too much about Sports Center. But once he left, they moved it to ESPN1 because they knew First Take would get swallowed by the wave that was going to be Undisputed. You didn't want to go up against Skip Bayless. See, Skip also got a little, some bravado on him and said, all right, I'm going to throw my shots now because I felt you took some shots. Skip came in and started throwing some shots. And I like that. Because this man, he came out and gave flowers to Shannon Sharpe. To really kind of throw Shannon and Stephen A. in it together. It's like that I understand you giving Shannon his props, which he did. I'm the only one. None of you out there, before y'all not talking about Uncle Shannon, Club Shay, all that. I told you before one episode aired what would happen with Shannon Sharpe. That is going to be a great selection. Y'all don't know Shannon Sharpe like I know Shannon Sharpe. It's gonna work. Told you. Most of you, it's not your fault you don't know. You're young. I'm older, so I've seen a lot. And I knew that these two, and plus I've seen him when he guest appeared on First Take a couple of times. I said, oh yeah, that could work. Now, let's listen to Skip some more.
Stephen A. because I wanted and I needed the challenge to come here and try to help ignite this network and put it on the map. And we have accomplished that. And here I owe a huge debt of gratitude to my man Shannon Sharpe. Could not have done it without you. Shannon Sharpe has been a godsend for me. Very different from Stephen A., as you might know from watching both shows. We're talking about a Pro Football Hall of Fame tight end with a deep love, a deep feel for, a deep interest in, a deep command of the NBA also. Shannon Sharpe works his tail off to compete with me every single day. The highest compliment I can pay Shannon Sharpe is he holds his own with me. He is a daily challenge for me, and I love him for that. So would you believe that Shannon and I had not been on the air much more than a month? when my old friend John Skipper, still running ESPN, decided to do exactly what I had asked again and again for John to do, which was move First Take from ESPN2 to E1. Again, I'm not sure what the exact number is, but maybe 10 times the eyeballs, the reach. And you just had to figure that he was moving First Take to help protect it from Undisputed. You should also know that in my first 4 years here at FS1, living in Los Angeles, every single time Stephen A. came to Los Angeles, he came over to visit me and Ernestine. We did not drift apart. We did not lose touch. We actually got closer. Every trip, every time. It seemed like it was once a month, which was great by us. He would come over and we would commiserate about the good old days. And we would talk about maybe someday reuniting. As my first contract here, the first 4-year deal neared its end, Stephen A. pushed ESPN to try to hire me back. He pushed hard. The idea for us was to initially reunite on ESPN Plus, but with an eye on sooner than later, segueing right back into doing what's called linear TV, regular TV, on a show together. I don't know, maybe we would have wound up together back on First Take. Maybe it would have been another show in the afternoon. I don't know that, but that was the game plan. And ESPN made a written offer, and my people here at Fox matched that offer. And to their credit, they even sweetened the pot a little bit. I was honored by this. I obviously had not failed in LA, and we could have, but we didn't. Because the salaries have been widely reported, I will reiterate. My second deal here at FS1 was 4 years at $8 million a year. That was $32 million total. Stephen A. had received huge publicity for the first year of his new deal, which was $10 million for the first year. The next 3 were for 6, 6, and 6, followed by a 5th year at $10 million.
He just pointed that out and said some very key words. He received a lot of publicity for his first year contract, for that contract. Now, Skip finna go big dog on him.
So when I re-signed, this is almost 2 years ago, when I re-signed with FS1, I was making $32 million for 4 years, while Stephen A. was making $28 for 5 years.
Damn.
And I was pretty proud of that. I'm not a big spender, as Ernestine will attest. Money definitely cannot buy happiness. But for me, this was a milestone, a landmark, because I have so much respect for Stephen A.'s stature. I was just pretty proud of that at that moment. Recently, my brother Stephen A. sent me pages that he has written for an upcoming autobiography. These pages were concerning me, and he wanted me to take a look and sign off on all that he had written about me, which was nice of him. I read them all. I had no problems. None of what he said on the Reddick podcast was in any of these pages that I read. That's why this felt like so much of a sucker punch when I read then saw what Stephen A. said on the podcast. That's why all of this just felt overall so wrong to me. But hey, Stephen A., maybe you just had a bad day. It happens, my man. Maybe you've just been run ragged by all the NBA final shows that you have to do on top of First Take, which I know can wear you out in and of itself.
That's another shot. You see, Skip Bayless is throwing shots, and a lot of people don't even know it. He's really saying, like, you're not me. And what he's really doing is big dogging him. He's putting his head over the little dog and pushing him to the ground, saying, no, I'm the alpha. What he's telling him is, yeah, they paid you $28 million or whatever, but I make more money than you, one, to do less. All I have to do is undisputed. Skip don't have to go bounce over to PTI He don't have to be on First Things First. He don't have to go anywhere else. He does Undisputed and he go home. The Skip Bayless show is his. That's it. He don't have to do a damn thing. Meanwhile, you got to do the NBA Finals. You got to go. They call you up in the middle of the night. Hey, so-and-so called off. We need you to get in here, Stephen A. We need you to start covering this morning. You're gonna have to get up a little bit earlier tonight. But it's 2 in the morning. I only got 2 hours of sleep. Well, it's part of the job. Got to go. Come on, boy. And you got to go and do anything when ESPN call. You got hypertension through the roof. You have crazy sleep apnea that many people have told me is really bad. And you went to get a surgery to get that taken care of by getting your tonsils taken out to improve that, because people were worried about you actually not waking up. And they couldn't even sleep with you at an airport where you do the majority of your sleeping. Now, I don't know what made him do what he did. It was real arrogant.
And we've been number one ever since. And so when it skyrocketed to that point, it was like, oh shit, I didn't see this coming. I knew we'd be successful, but I didn't know we'd skyrocket to the number one morning show. And it happened a month after I arrived, and it's never changed.
We talk about the chemistry all the time with things like this. Did you feel that chemistry right away?
Yeah, we always had chemistry. Skip and I used to work at Fox together. Jim Rome is Bernie.
Yeah.
He had that show on ESPN. It was called The Last Word when he was on Fox. And we would be in Fox studios off of Pico Boulevard and Avenue of the Stars, which I absolutely loved. The palm trees, sunshine, lunch outside with 90-degree weather, sunshine beaming down. I just loved it, And they did a pilot with Skip and I, because Skip and I used to debate all the time, and we never agreed on anything. But I love the fact that, again, he stood for what he felt. And his whole thing is, this is what I believe, and I can make that argument. Now, no matter how much I disagreed, I respected the fact that that's how he felt, and that was an argument that he could make. So we would debate sometimes in the hallways. And then the executives saw us one time. They watched him do his work. They watched me do my work when I was on the Best Damn Sports Show, period. And they said, let's create a pilot. And we created a pilot that was called Sports in Black and White. And they were basically trying to create it to go up against PTI. And we did it. They loved it. We were in contract talks, the whole bit. And at the 11th hour and 59th minute, the head of Fox, David Hill, pulled the plug and said, this is not what we want to do. And so from that moment on, that was in the year 2000. From that moment on, Skip and I had always wondered what it would be like if we had worked together, because we had kept in touch throughout the years. So when the opportunity finally came and he approached me in that parking lot, that was what he brought up. This is unfinished business. We were supposed to do this 12 years ago, but here we are again, and this is our opportunity. Stephen A., I need you to do this for me. And by this time, I was coming on once a week, because I had returned in 2011, and then a few months in, I would come on every Wednesday, and the ratings would blow up. And he said, I need you to do it.
Did your relationship with...
You see, the arrogance, do you hear the arrogance? That's somebody who got bread. They changed their narratives. They changed the story. He's not telling you the truth. He's not telling you that they didn't even want him. And in the last magic hour, he never explained why the plug was pulled. Skip Bayless told you. They said, we can't deal with this guy, Stephen A. Smith, 5 nights a week. I just can't do it. I don't think people would want to deal with that. And Skip was like, man, y'all making a mistake. Then Rome lost his show, and Jim Rome had a bunch of controversy go down, and they took down all Jim Rome's shows, which led them to ESPN. So, to catch everybody up full circle, this is exactly what I've told you. Jalen Rose had the highest rating. That show was the highest rating. And it was like, when he was on the show and he did that whole episode and it was about Kwame Brown. And he was like, do you think, like, for you to call that man a bum and this and that and talk about him in such a manner, and it was like, what makes that dude? That dude's feeding his family, his parents, whatever. Like, he was the only one that looked at it from that angle. So then Stephen A gets chimed in. He's basically teamed up with Skip to where they're both going at Jalen Rose. See, ESPN, they didn't like that brash bravado that Stephen A had. And a lot of this, y'all don't understand what this is. This is basically DJ Academics. It's DJ Academics and Joe Budden. Now, Academics was popular on the internet. Academics is Stephen A in this situation. They based their show around Undisputed when they did Everyday Struggle. Joe was watching it and said, oh, we could do that with hip hop. Bottom line. The thing is, the narrative of why the show failed and didn't, it was a success first. Then the failure of it happened with the business end of everything. But the same thing that happened with Stephen A. Complex didn't want Academics. Even though he fits their motto, Joe, no show. Joe is the one of interest. Joe is the one they're going to meet with. It's Joe's show. Joe is this. Joe's the one they want to do the deal with. Joe had to choose who he wanted to work with. They didn't ask Academics, okay, who you want to work with? Or Nadeska, do you feel comfortable working with Joe? No. They didn't even pick. They were trying to pick their person, their one moderator. Joe got control of that also. Joe started to learn the business while being on the job. And what he was finding out is that the ad revenue was being split throughout all the podcast shows. And they could allocate which shows get what based on certain benchmarks. Now, as Everyday Struggle was hitting benchmarks, they were trying to say, well, we're not really. So what they wanted to do at Complex was take the money and get the urban market in and shut people up who might assume them of being racist and everything else. Look, we got Everyday Struggle, we got hip hop, we got Joe Buttons and this guy from the internet named Academics, who they didn't care nothing about or know anything about, but they ended up gravitating to him, right? Joe falls out with the company and leaves the show. Skip Bayless didn't fall out with ESPN, just ended the contract, negotiations, he left the show. So, if you had a hit show, one of your acts leave, you don't just can the show. You have to keep the show moving. People know the name, so they fought to keep the name, Everyday Struggle, and they just say, we'll bring in another host, and we'll keep Nadeska and Academics. It's the same show, just Joe's not going to be here. So let's see how that works. But now, Academics is in a better position. They got to make him happy. It's renegotiation time. It's re-up time. Let's make that guy happy. Let's give him the deal that Joe said no to. See, would he take it? Oh yeah, I take it. So he got what Joe didn't get. because Joe actually fought for it. Now, on top of this, Skip Bayless left, got a big deal somewhere else. Joe went to do his podcast and ended up with Spotify. Got a $2 million Spotify deal. Then, Academics is getting paid to do his Complex show, whatever the terms were. Then, Stephen A. Smith, ESPN signs him to a multi-million-dollar contract so he don't leave. So he don't go join Skip. Academics had a choice: go join Joe at Spotify or stay on Complex. And he stayed on Complex. Similar situations, right? One guy's the trailblazer, and the other guy is just picking up all the crumbs and all the remains and all the rewards that's left over after Joe burns everything down. Now, those two never collided with one another, right? Same thing with Skip and Shannon. But now, since Academics got that money, now, since Stephen A. got that money, the talk is a little different. Before, Skip could say something and Stephen A. would be just, okay. Now he feels, oh no, I'm superior. I'm an equal. And he can change his narrative. Academics feel the same way. He feel, oh no. You can't big dog me no more. I'm an equal. If not, think I'm higher than you now. He's not, but he believes it in his mind. And this is the lesson, people. Power and money corrupts everything. And it's the illusion that you have this power that blinds you. Stephen A. believes he got more power than Skip. Skip just showed you in that one interview, in that whole little segment he did, who had power and who didn't. A lot of you would have missed everything he just said if I probably didn't point it out. He brought up your salaries. He brought up his salary. Brought up the fact that they publicized your salary. They rarely said too much about Skip's salary. It was quoted, but Skip never really bragged or talked about his salary. There was no promotion about it, really. He just made more money. To do less. While you are constantly doing 5, 6, 7 shows for the money. It's called time for dollars. And so far, you have no time. You're living in an airport, flying around, dizzy as hell, not knowing what time zones you're in. That don't sound fair to me. But you had to take the deal. Or did you? You could have been in California with Skip, but Shannon Sharp sincerely would like to thank you. Because now Shannon Sharp's got his own Fox deal. And guess what Shannon Sharp don't have to do? He don't have to go on this show, that show, and this show. All he got to do is Undisputed, which allows him to get his own Club Shay Shay and get that on and crack it. So at the end of the day, it's always about the money. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the page, and just look at the banner below and just do everything on the banner. And then everybody can be at peace. Know what I mean? I'm out. Time for NBA Finals.